You watch the heaviest hitters in combat sports and something doesn't add up. They're not always the biggest, not always the most muscular, sometimes not even the most technical. Yet, when they connect, lights go out. Meanwhile, you're putting everything into your punches and your opponent just walks through them. The frustrating part, you're probably stronger than you think. The issue isn't your strength, it's that you're generating force the wrong way. Walk into any gym and you'll see fighters obsessed with building bigger arms, thicker chests, more defined shoulders. They assume knockout power lives in muscle size. It doesn't. The hardest punchers in history often had ordinary physiques. Ernie Shavers looked like someone's uncle. Deontay Wilder was lean and wiry. Julian Jackson wasn't walking around with bodybuilder proportions, yet all of them could shut off consciousness with a single shot. So what do they have that you might be missing? The answer lives in something called rate of force development. A punch happens in roughly 60 milliseconds, 6/100ths of a second. In that microscopic window, your body either produces massive force or it doesn't. Muscle size determines your maximum strength potential, but maximum strength and explosive strength are different animals. You can bench press 300 pounds and still punch like you're moving underwater because your nervous system hasn't learned to recruit all that strength instantly. Here's where most fighters go wrong. They think power starts in the fist. It doesn't. It starts in your rear foot, specifically the moment your rear leg drives into the ground. Your gluteus maximus, the largest muscle in your body, contracts explosively to extend your hip. That force travels up through your leg, but it doesn't just move vertically. Ground reaction force is the physics principle at work here. You push down, the ground pushes back with equal force, and if you've sequenced everything correctly, that energy travels upward through your body like electricity through a wire. But most fighters short-circuit this entire process before it even begins. They start with their shoulders. Watch someone throw a weak punch and you'll see their shoulder move first, then their torso rotates, then maybe their hips catch up if they remember. That sequence is completely backwards. Your shoulders can't generate rotational power. They're not built for it. The powerhouse is your hips, and if your hips don't move first, you've already lost most of your knockout potential before your fist leaves your chin. This concept has a name in biomechanics, the X factor. It refers to the separation between hip rotation and shoulder rotation. The greater the gap between when your hips start rotating and when your shoulders follow, the more torque you create. Picture winding up a rubber band. The more you twist it, the more violent the snap when you release it. Your torso works the same way. Elite punchers create massive separation between their lower and upper body, storing elastic energy in the fascia and muscle chains connecting their hips to their shoulders. When that stored energy releases, it doesn't just add to your punch. It multiplies it. Now here's something that'll sound counterintuitive. Tension kills power. You think you need to tense every muscle, clench your jaw, squeeze your fist as hard as possible from the start. Wrong. A tense muscle is a slow muscle. Relaxation allows for fluid movement and faster acceleration. Watch footage of prime Mike Tyson and you'll notice how loose he looks right until the moment of impact. His shoulders aren't hunched up around his ears. His arms aren't rigid. Everything flows. Then, at the instant his fist connects, every muscle snaps tight simultaneously. That's the difference between pushing and punching. The follow-through principle matters more than most fighters realize. Your punch shouldn't stop at the target. Visualize your fist traveling through your opponent's head, not to it. This isn't about being more aggressive, it's about physics. When you aim for the surface, your brain subconsciously begins decelerating before impact to protect your joints. When you aim through the target, you maintain maximum velocity all the way to contact. That split-second difference is often what separates a punch that stuns from a punch that sleeps. Genetics do play a role, but probably not the way you think. Fast-twitch muscle fibers generate explosive power. Slow-twitch fibers are built for endurance. World-class Olympic weightlifters have been shown to possess over 70% fast-twitch fibers in some studies. You're either born with a certain ratio or you're not, and that ratio influences your natural explosive capacity. But here's what matters more. Training can optimize whatever fiber composition you have. You're not trying to become someone else. You're trying to maximize your own potential, and that's completely achievable regardless of your genetic starting point. So, if technique is king and muscle size isn't the answer, what actually builds finishing power? You need to train your body to produce force rapidly, and that requires a completely different approach than traditional strength training. Most fighters lift weights the same way bodybuilders do. Slow, controlled reps focused on time under tension to create muscle damage and growth. That builds size. It doesn't build explosion. What you need instead are training methods specifically designed to improve your rate of force development, and there's a precise way to structure this training to translate directly into punching power. But before we get into the specific exercises and training protocols that actually work, you need to understand the force couple mechanism and momentum transfer, because these two concepts are what separate fighters who hit hard from fighters who hit like they're trying to cave in someone's rib cage. The force couple mechanism is what transforms your hips from a simple rotation into a power multiplier. Here's how it works. Your rear leg drives forward with massive hip extension, powered primarily by your glutes. At the exact same moment, your front leg breaks backward through knee-dominant action. These two opposing forces don't just add together, they multiply. When forces act as levers in opposite directions around a single axis, they create twice the torque. That's not theory, that's physics. Elite fighters instinctively use this mechanism. Their rear leg pushes them toward the opponent, while their front leg simultaneously plants and resists. The pelvis becomes the fulcrum. Those opposing forces torque the hips violently, generating rotational power that no amount of isolated core work could ever produce. This is why fighters with incredible abs sometimes punch like they're underwater. They're training rotation. They're not training the force couple that creates rotation. Then there's momentum transfer, which takes everything we've discussed and compounds it. When you throw your body weight into a punch, you're not just adding mass. You're creating momentum. And momentum is mass times velocity. The more momentum you build, the harder it becomes to stop your movement, and the more kinetic energy you deliver on impact. But here's the critical detail most fighters miss. It's not about lunging forward recklessly. It's about the lap belt effect. You accelerate toward your opponent with hip-dominant drive from your rear leg. Then, at precisely the right moment, you stump a knee-dominant braking action with your front leg. That sudden deceleration doesn't stop your momentum. It redirects it. All that forward energy gets funneled upward through your torso and into your arm. Meanwhile, because your legs attach to opposite sides of your pelvis, that braking action creates another force couple, adding even more rotational torque on top of the momentum you've already built. Look at Deontay Wilder. His technique isn't textbook. His punches often look wild, unbalanced, almost reckless. Yet he's put more heavyweights to sleep than most fighters even face in their careers. Why? Because his body follows the correct sequence even when his form doesn't look clean. Watch his knockouts closely. His hips always move first. Then his torso whips through. That separation between hip and torso rotations stretches the fascia and muscle chains connecting them, particularly the spiral line running from his obliques through his serratus anterior. When those chains release, they don't just contract, they snap. That elastic energy is what makes his right hand feel like getting hit with a baseball bat. Even when the punch travels 6 inches, it's not about the distance, it's about the sequence. And that sequence can be trained. Ernie Shavers provides an even clearer blueprint, widely considered one of the hardest punches in heavyweight history. Shavers demonstrated biomechanical mastery in every significant punch he threw. His uppercuts were particularly devastating, and the mechanics reveal why. He'd begin in a flexed spinal position, coiled and loaded. As he launched upward, he'd extend his spine, putting his glutes and hamstrings in optimal position to contract explosively. Simultaneously, his hips would rotate as his arm retracted, creating maximum stretch in the crossbody chains. Then came the release, lightning-fast acceleration from a fully loaded position. Watch his overhand right against Larry Holmes. There's a clear dip as he loads his center of gravity, then explosive hip drive, then acceleration through impact. Every box checked. Against Muhammad Ali, you can see the weight transferring into and through the punch, not just to it. That's the difference. Shavers wasn't pushing, he was punching. So how do you actually train this? Olympic lifts come first. Power cleans and snatches force you to generate maximum force from the ground up in fractions of a second. That's exactly what a knockout punch demands. These movements teach your nervous system to recruit muscle fibers rapidly and coordinate the entire kinetic chain simultaneously. You're not building size, you're building the ability to explode. Speed squats with lighter weight moved as fast as possible develop leg explosiveness. That's the foundation of your ground reaction force. Without explosive legs, everything upstream suffers. Plyometrics like clap push-ups and depth jumps train your muscles to produce force in the stretch shortening cycle, the same mechanism that makes your fascia snap when you punch. Medicine ball slams are perhaps the single most effective exercise for knockout power. Every slam trains explosive hip extension, core compression, and the ability to accelerate an object violently downward. That's biomechanically identical to throwing across or overhand. Landmine presses develop rotational power while mimicking the exact movement pattern of a hook. You're not just getting stronger, you're getting stronger in the specific ranges and speeds that translate directly to punching. Heavy bag work remains essential, but only if you're using it correctly. And don't just swing at the bag, focus on the sequence. Drive from your rear leg. Feel your hips separate from your shoulders. Let that separation stretch. Then explode through, punching through the bag, not to it. Every single repetition should reinforce proper mechanics. 10 perfect punches beat 100 sloppy ones every time. Your core needs to transfer force, not just resist it. Pallof presses, weighted planks, and anti-rotation work build the stability required to channel power without leaking energy. But don't neglect rotational medicine ball throws. Stand sideways to a wall and explosively throw the ball, driving from your rear hip. That's as sport-specific as strength training gets. The fighters who hit the hardest aren't always the biggest or the strongest. They're the ones who understand that power is a skill, it's sequencing, it's timing, it's the ability to turn your entire body into a coordinated kinetic chain that delivers maximum force in 60 milliseconds. Train the sequence, build explosive strength, master the mechanics. That's how you develop finishing power. Not by accident, by design. You don't need to be born with it. You need to understand it, then build it systematically. Stop chasing size and start chasing speed. Master the sequence from the ground up. Train your body to explode, not just contract. When you fix the mechanics and develop the right kind of strength, your power stops being a mystery. It becomes inevitable.